It's that time of the year where we look back at half a season and we've got a reasonable amount of games to take a good sample size as to who has been the best player in the Premier League in terms of new signing this season. So the player can have played in the Premier League already. I'm just talking about players that have moved from one team to the other. So there's plenty of players to consider. I've looked at a bunch of articles online to try and gauge where their mind's at. I'm in a very similar situation. But Jason, is there anyone that stands out to you?
Before I get into it, is there a consensus on somebody in terms of all the headlines, the BBC, the Sky Sports, the reputable sources?
There's like three. There's three.
And what are those three?
N'Golo Kante, who is mine.
Obviously.
Sadio Mane. For
Who's been
Liverpool
fantastic.
has been great, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Sadio Mane because I do have my soft spot for Liverpool, and I love the players who get, and I like the managers too, who get like heavily criticized before. And look, we're talking heads. We're pretty critical of everybody.
You have to be.
Bold in our opinions. We didn't really say all that much about Sadio Mane. We were more critical of just Liverpool as a whole, but we also took a step back and said, well, maybe this is what they want to do, because we were both the two who kept saying, this isn't, ahead of this season, it still wasn't fully Klopp's team.
Yeah.
And he was working with players and he needed a full year, and obviously that turned out pretty well for the manager to have a beer with award.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, here's a brief tangent, right? We'll get criticised for saying what we believe at that moment in time, and sometimes we're a little rash in our judgment, but for instance, at the weekend clip, of course I'm going to criticise Arsenal, but I'll praise them as I have done. Like, this is what my job is. It's to come here and tell you what I think when certain things happen. That game against Manchester City was such a winnable game. That's why I was pissed off. If I was an Arsenal fan, I would have been through the roof. I wouldn't have been able to sit down the whole weekend because I would have just been so mad. Not because they fell so far behind, but because it was such a great time to win a game against a big team. So
I think objectively, I think it's really hard to make a case against N'Golo Kante. I think he's been, and as you've pointed out multiple times, the way that he hunts.
Yeah.
Man, he's like a one-man wolf pack, pretty much. But I'd pick Sadio Mane to be a little bit of a contrarian, and I also, I like Klopp, I like Liverpool, I like his finesse, I like his ability to finish and what he's been doing, especially in open field this season.
He's a great call because we did criticise that, but again, we took what we have seen in the past and we made an accurate judgment based on what we've seen. It's not factual. It doesn't. We can't see into the future. But after we see Lallana trying to find his feet, finally doing so under Jurgen Klopp, Ricky Lambert, Andy Carroll, all these Premier League big hotshots that Liverpool went in and just raided, didn't really hit the heights. So Sadio Mane was very similar. It cost a lot. He came in and he's done so well. Like the same thing could be said for Sissoko, who's doing shit at Tottenham. He'll be on our other list. He was in the same sort of bracket as a signing, someone who had a decent season, looked good, but then you bring him into the big time for some of these players, and sometimes the pressure gets to him, but it doesn't get to him.
I have one last question. That's it. Who is in charge of Chelsea signing checks and
Roman Abramovich.
Roman Abramovich. Mike, he has been the best investor in all of the Premier League. He's bought players for 15 million and sold them for 50. Most recently, I think Oscar to China.
He's a magician.
It's truly amazing. I want that guy as the chairman of the Federal Reserve or some shit here in America, because God knows who Trump's going to
He's not always favourable because he likes to kind of have his hand in the jars, but when it comes to the business side of it, he gives the money, and at times it does work out. So we'll get to a clip on the new managers as well. Don't worry about that. There'll be plenty of praise for Antonio Conte, but N'Golo Kante's mine solely because what he gives Chelsea, which they didn't have last year, which they had the year before. They had Matic and Fabregas when Mourinho delivered them a Premier League title again. Great sense of stability, phenomenal partnership in there, and then things got a little fractured. Cesc Fabregas' confidence, his work rate, it all dropped. So you bring in Kante, who works hard enough for 5 midfielders, so you can get those more technically gifted players to move forward. And Kante does get involved. He actually scored this season. I remember against Manchester United. That was the real clear example of how United weren't working hard enough in the middle. But he gives them so much security. I talked about my favourite statement I ever made on N'Golo Kante, Jason, is he is the world's best condom in terms of world football. Someone put that into a quote template, tag me, put it in a frame. So he's my choice, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be a good argument for Zlatan. We just did a full clip on how good Zlatan is at the moment. 11 Premier League goals has delivered them 10 points, needed points to keep them in the top 4. They would have been in 12th without Zlatan's goals. There's another good shout for Mustafi, who plays with Arsenal, who's had a great transition into the Premier League, and he's fitted in very well. he deserves a mention. I just think when you're choosing at this point, you need to see someone who has had a remarkable impact, not just with goals, but just the way the team is playing with him in their squad. And I think that N'Golo Kante, with the likes of Antonio Conte, like-minded words, have worked very well. They're a match made in heaven. And you can see how much his impact has hurt the team that he left. That's a real clear indicator as to how good N'Golo Kante was, because Leicester City, struggling in the bottom half of the table, flying high last year with him there. The points differential between what Kante brought to them and what he's doing to Chelsea is it's just a sign that this guy is a gifted player. He helps everyone around him feel safe. I wouldn't mind him guarding my front door now and again. I just think that he could do anything, Jason. He just is a great patrolman around the area. So he deserves my shout.
I think you're right. Zlatan, we did a whole clip on Zlatan recently, so Zlatan gets a shout too, obviously.
Yeah,
but
it's just a difference in Premier League standings. Chelsea are top of the table.
Chelsea are top of the table. Antonio Kante set records again, some Premier League record. I know.
One of them.
Come here. Just another record, that's all.
He's doing very well. And even Pep Guardiola stated that he is one of the best in the world.
I was going to talk about that at a different point, but I don't know when this clip is going up exactly. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once here. Pep Guardiola even acknowledged the fact that Manchester City has terrible fans.
He did?
He did. I'm not sure if you already heard, but after Saturday's match, this is going up about a week from then, he said it was really nice to see the Manchester City fans stay for the last 10 minutes of the game or so, because they haven't been. No excuses, guys. I made that joke for years and years and years that they have 10 fans, and of course they have more than that in actuality. It's an exaggeration, but now your manager's even siding with me. So.
That was a big game against Arsenal when they were in the lead. That's why they stuck around. So let us know what you think in the comment section below. Who's the Premier League signing of the season so far? Is there someone in there we missed who deserves a shout?
Shoot.
Francis_Maxwell, Jason Rubin 91. Francis Maxwell, host on Instagram, and Jason Rubin 91. You might see some holiday pictures from our holiday party whenever this goes up.
Nope.
There is some.
Editors do not. Editors,
I'm wearing a turtleneck.
No, definitely no.
Before he's shaking his head. Go! You still get the walk of shame.
Forever I want it and I ain't giving it up. I work my hands to the bone and now I'm living it up. I'm going dumb in the club. My clothes, we don't give a hug. We work too hard to get